So the classic car market in 2025. What's hot? What's not? Should you still buy one? Is the classic car market collapsing? Or are we actually seeing the perfect time to buy your dream motor? Well, get this, nearly 90% of collectible cars either fell or stayed flat in value over the past year. Yep, specifically 46% were down and 46% were flat. But hold on, that still means that 8% rose in value. And it's not the ones that you'd expect. Forget Jaguar E-Types and Aston Martin DB5s. Try the Datsun Z car, Toyota MR2s, old fast Fords. Plus there's another factor influencing the classic car market, and that's the generational shift. So in this video, we're going to break down exactly what's happening right now, what's rising, what's falling, what's going on with the market, and whether you should be buying, selling, or holding fast to your classic. Let's do that right after this.
A brown car guy. Brown car guy.
All right, first, the big picture. The classic car market as of mid-2025. It's flatlining, not crashing, not booming, just coasting. Hagerty's global market index has dropped back to pre-pandemic levels after the COVID boom sent values through the roof. 2024 brought a full-on correction. So as mentioned, 46% of tracked UK models were down, another 46% were flat, and only around 8% actually went up in value. Wowzers. So, is this the classic car dream dead? Nah, especially not based on a previous video that I posted that indicates people are actually using their classics more than ever. And now that the DVLA has just changed the rules to make it easier to register your modified, restored, or resto-modded classic car, this is only going to make things even more interesting in the market. No, the state of the market is not a bad thing in terms of what's going on. It's all actually good news because this is a correction, it's not a collapse. Things did accelerate hard right after COVID. They literally bounced off the red line. But what we've got now is that they've settled down to cruising speed. Prices are stabilizing, the overhyped stuff, that's cooling off. But the good cars, the genuinely desirable ones, they're still strong. And the really exciting bit, there's been a massive generational shift that's happening in the market. So boomers are stepping out. Okay, let's be a little bit more blunt. They're dying off. Gen X is now dominant. That's my lot. Until we also start dropping like flies, of course. But the next lot are already in. And actually, I'm not just talking millennials, but even Gen Z. Some of these lot, they have barely started driving. A few haven't even started shaving yet, but they're already having a part to play in influencing the classic car market. So let's talk about who's actually buying classics now. So Gen X, people born between 1965 and 1980, we now make up 64% of Hagerty quotes in the UK. Boomers, like I said, moving on literally in some cases. God bless their souls. But millennials and Gen Z, they are the fastest growing segment. And guess what? They don't want walnut dashboards and wire wheels or a spanner set for Christmas. They want cars from their era. Think PlayStation generation, Gran Turismo, Fast and Furious. You know, what you would call modern classics or young timers. It's like with every generation. The cars that they related to, the cars that they fell in love with and lusted after as kids, and now they find themselves with the wherewithal to acquire them. You know, the rich are getting younger and the young are getting wealthier. They want to live out their dreams and they want to do it now, not later. They want to feel the car, they want to feel the drives, they want cars that are still relatively analog. And who can blame them? After all, we're talking about cars like Nissan Skylines, you know, GTRs, Toyota Supras, Honda Type Rs, Mazda RX-7s, Escort and Sierra Cosworths. And for the even wealthier, turn of the millennium Lambos, Porsches, Ferraris, you know, the last of the analog. Some even came with manual transmissions, of course. These are the holy grail of desirable, proper driving, hardcore sports and supercars. And this is not just hype I'm talking about, this is data. Cars from the 2000s were the only era to see values increase in 2024. 1960s stuff, down. 1970s, holding. 1980s and 90s, all over the place. But the cool cars are still rising. All right, let's talk about the stars of the show. The cars defying the slump and actually going up in value. Top performers include the Datsun 280ZX, up 138% since 2019. DeLorean DMC12, up 73%. Toyota MR2s from the 1990s, up 18% this year. Ferrari F355 quietly rising and also kind of pulling the 348 up with it. And the Porsche 996, the 911, yes, this is the late 90s and early 2000 model with the so-called scrambled egg headlights, much hated at the time, and that reason alone has kept values suppressed. But the younger generation doesn't know about all that hatred for the headlights. Instead, they're looking past the headlights and they're seeing what was one of the most accessible and affordable, relatively modern 911s out there. Remember, at the end of the day, this is still a real Porsche 911. So there's renewed interest and prices are rising as a result. And then there's the Lamborghini Gallardo. At the time, this was Lambo's biggest selling model ever. I still love its sharp, rakish lines, and I have a soft spot for them since a Superleggera was my first 200 miles per hour plus experience. The rare manual cars in particular are going up, and prices are only going to keep rising, especially for good ones. Beware abused examples. For instance, avoid rental cars if you can, or expect to have to pay a big restoration bill. Similarly, though a little bit newer, the utterly beautiful Ferrari 458 from 2009 to 2015, the last of the naturally aspirated Ferrari V8s in that segment, they're also starting to see values firm up. Meanwhile, hot hatchbacks, still strong. SUVs and 4x4s, yes, even those. There's a strong demand, for example, for the G-Wagon. Well, you know, stick a private plate on one of those and no one really knows how old your car actually is, since they're relatively unchanged since the Jurassic period. The new Ford Bronco saw interest rise in the classic models, and classic Toyota Land Cruisers are also being sought after by those looking for functional but rugged classics. Other modern classics like the Mini Cooper S, the R53, and early 2000 Beamers and Mercs are also seeing value strengthen. Next, I'm going to tell you about some of the surprising losers in the market. But first, this. Make sure that you hit like, share, and subscribe on this video. And you know what? Support independent journalism channels like mine. You can do that over at patreon.com, coffee.com, and on YouTube you can take out a paid membership. It's entirely voluntary. My content is utterly free. It will always be free, but do support it, even if you just press the like button and engage with it by commenting. Also, don't forget, I have now got shorts on a separate channel, Brown Car Guy Shorts, so go and subscribe to that channel as well. And you know what? I've got 3 books out as well. The first one is an all-action thriller. It's just a fun chase through London with actually quite a few cool classics in it. That's called The Ulez Files. The second one is a collection of short stories that I wrote over 20 years. That's called Quantum Races. And the third one, my book out this year, is all about how to do what I do, how to be an automotive content creator. All 3 of these are now on Amazon. Go check them out. If you buy one, that'd be much appreciated. If you buy all 3, you might be entered into a draw to win an exclusive BCG pin badge and keyring set. Quite exclusive. There's only 20 of those to give away. Anyway, I'll much appreciate it. If you like the books, don't forget to leave a review. If you didn't like them, don't leave a review. Right, to those losers then. What's falling fast? Well, it's not all good news when it comes to this latest data. Some icons are tumbling and some of those are shockers. The biggest fallers, for example, Aston DB4, DB5, DB6, values are slipping. Even for the Zagato, yes, the sexiest Aston ever made, and I don't even like Zagato versions as a general rule, but even that one saw its value decline by the price of a small house in London. Jaguar E-Type, still gorgeous, but prices are softening. And then further down the range, TR7s, old Rolls Royces, things like that, MGBs, these are not what the kids are buying. American muscle cars, Mustangs, Camaros, 50 Chevys, these are also down 10 to 15%. They're relatively still strong. And there's some indication that previously less loved 70s and 80s versions are seeing prices start to gain. Cheap starter classics, hot hatches from the 1980s and, you know, bread and butter regular cars, these saw a pandemic bubble, but that's now burst. Let me explain why. During the pandemic, when everyone was stuck at home binging all episodes of Top Gear and dreaming about the open road, demand for affordable entry-level classics exploded. These were cars that gave people that nostalgic buzz, hot hatches from the 80s and 90s, quirky old saloons, even some humble coupes and convertibles. Think about cars such as the Peugeot 205 GTI, the Volkswagen Golf Mark II GTI, Ford, XR2, XR3i, RS Turbo, Volvo 240s, old Mercedes and BMW saloons, Fiat X19s, and of course Mazda MX-5s as well. Suddenly these cars that were around £2,000 to £3,000 normally, they were changing hands for over £10,000. Why? Well, the supply was limited, but suddenly there was a flood of new bored middle-aged buyers that decided now was the time to do it. There was rising nostalgia, and there was this belief that anything old was now an investment. But here's the reality in 2025. That boom wasn't sustainable. As the wider market corrected, so did these cars. Many were overbought. Sometimes they were badly modified, poorly restored, or with weak provenance. And buyers began wising up and being more picky and discerning. On top of that, the cost of living crisis has pinched younger buyers the hardest, making them a little bit more cautious about what they buy. Haggerty even noted that the Peugeot 205 GTI, once the poster child for skyrocketing hot hatch values, was one of the worst fallers last year after several years of aggressive appreciation. Same goes for lower spec versions of otherwise desirable models. They've either plateaued or actually dropped. Now, this doesn't mean these cars or the other losers that I mentioned earlier, if you like, are suddenly bad cars. Not at all. It just means that the easy money bubble around them is gone. Prices are correcting. That's actually a good thing for genuine enthusiasts, because that means these cars are becoming more affordable again and the quality ones are bubbling to the surface. So if you've been priced out of that GTI dream previously, it might be time to have another look, because you could get back in the game. Certainly don't dismiss any of these cars that are falling into this category, because they'll never erode value completely, and many may well bounce back in the future. Just be picky. Buy clever, right? Originality, provenance, condition, these things really matter more than ever. How about auctions? Well, they're cooling too. Total global auction sales are down. Median sale price is now around $27,000, which is the lowest since 2020. On the other hand, digital auctions, they're booming. So right here in the UK, you've got collecting cars and car and classics over, along with, say, Bring a Trailer over in the US. These are dominating. In fact, online now appears to be the most popular place to buy sub 100k cars. Sellers are flooding the market, especially older owners who are cashing out, so prices are softening. And you've got options. Top tip is simple though. Buy the best that you can afford. Condition and provenance, along with history and a thick stack of receipts and records, this matters now more than ever. A great example will always hold value better than a rough one, even in a flat market. So should you buy a classic car now with the market as it is? Yes, absolutely. If you're a first-time buyer, this might actually be the best time in years. Prices are down and stock is high. Insurance is actually still reasonable. But the thing is to buy something that you want, something you really want, something that you love, not something that somebody else has told you that's a good investment. And what about if you're a current owner? Well, think strategically. If your car's value has exploded recently, it might well be time to cash in. Or if it's dipped, but if you love it, hold. It could well bounce back. And this is the thing, even with cars that are out of fashion, pre-war stuff or old sedans, maybe it's actually time to buy in these cars while the prices are really low. You see, the classic car market, like anything else, has trends. Today, it may all be about JDM heroes and 2000s supercars, but what's hot now wasn't always hot. Remember when Ferrari 308s were dirt cheap, or, the scrambled egg 911? That was shunned. Now it's suddenly in flavor. So when you have pre-war cars, we're talking 1930s and earlier, we're talking Rileys, Austin 7s, Citroen Traction Avants. These cars used to be the backbone of the classic car scene, but their values have slumped hard in the last couple of decades. Why? Well, simply put, the generation that loved and maintained them is aging out of the hobby, and newer buyers haven't stepped in yet. So that means these cars are incredibly undervalued. You can buy a fully restored 1930s saloon or Tourer with the craftsmanship, presence, and the provenance of what epitomizes those sort of cars for less than the price of a Dacia Duster. But those cars are still rolling pieces of history, and being cheap might just make them attractive to enthusiasts again, so they could see a renaissance. Similarly, old sedans, we're talking 1960s or 19 to 1980s saloons, things like Jaguars, Rovers, Volvos, Vauxhalls. These cars are actually incredibly usable classics. They've got 4 seats, boot space, they're comfortable, they're drivable, but they're not flashy coupes or convertibles, so they may have been overlooked as two-door classics soar out of reach. These saloons, previously unnoticed, are starting to get some attention. Something like a high-quality Rover SD1 Vitesse or an early Jaguar XJ6 are looking increasingly attractive now. Keep in mind too that old cars in service, particularly things like Volvo, Saabs, Mercedes, they'll keep on keeping on until someone decides to scrap them. But once they're gone, they're gone. Many of these models are being crushed, and rarity could make the ones that are still around even more desirable. Prices should therefore rise. So if you're a collector with a vision, or someone looking to stand out at a show, or you like to go to the festival of the unexceptional, so you want to buy a classic without breaking the bank, these unfashionable classics could be the smartest move in 2025. Buy ahead of the curve, and you could well be something that everybody else is pointing at in a few years and saying, how did you get that so cheap? So the bottom line is that this isn't the end of the classic car market by no means whatsoever. It's just the next chapter. So whether you're looking at for maybe a 5K hot hatch or a 50K JDM Icon or a £1 million Ferrari, buy the one that most appeals to you, that speaks to your soul. Because let's be honest, it's not about the numbers, it's about the drives, the smiles, the meets, the memories. It's about fulfilling your childhood dreams. So tell me in the comments, what's the classic car that you dream of buying in 2025? And share this video with someone who's thinking about getting into it. Finally stop dreaming and start driving. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on your way out, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links. Or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.